It is 8:44 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 7th day of August 2025. This is episode 1142 of Bitcoin, and the Tornado Cash verdict is in. We will talk about it, I promise. But then there's some serious chicanery with Solomon Brothers. Yes, they're back from the dead. They died in the 2008 thing with Bear Stearns and all the great financial collapse of 2008. Solomon Brothers has risen from the fucking dead. It's like a bunch of priests in Egypt gathered in the main chamber of the Great Pyramid of Giza, chanted some druidic crap, and raised this scum-sucking miscreant directly from the grave. And if you wonder why I'm a little upset about this, you're going to find out why. This is all the news you can use. It's about Bitcoin. It's going to tell you what the hell happened probably yesterday, well, definitely yesterday, and what's going on at least this morning. And man, this Solomon Brothers story is really freaking creepy, dude. Really creepy. Trump and 401k plans and Bitcoin. We'll talk about it. And Shinobi has something to say about the government. It's not your friend. I don't need Shinobi from Bitcoin Magazine to tell me that the government is not my friend, but there may be somebody out there that really needs to know about it. Mullvad VPN, if you've never used a VPN, or if you are using a VPN and looking for a different way to do it, or some other VPN vendor, Mullvad may be your go-to because they've announced something. And an oil and gas firm in the UK, which I'm surprised they even allow oil and gas companies to actually operate in the United Kingdom, considering how idiotic the UK government has become. And it's become really bad, man, really bad. Well, they're doing the mining thing, and they might do something more, and it's possible, although I ain't holding my breath, that the United States might revisit this Bitcoin reserve thing. I mean, actually act upon what they said that they were going to do. Who knows? I don't trust them, and neither should you. But first, we got to talk about the Tornado Cash thing, man, because the Tornado Cash trial has finally and formally concluded, and Roman Storm has been found guilty on one of the 3 counts that he was on trial for. Our good friend Frank Corva from Bitcoin Magazine has it today. Excuse me. Today in the Southern District of New York, Tornado Cash co-founder Roman Storm was found guilty on the 2nd count of his 3-count indictment, conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money transmitting business. The jury did not come to a unanimous verdict on the other 2 counts, which were conspiracy to commit money laundering and conspiracy to violate sanctions. The jury arrived at this guilty verdict after 3.5 days of deliberation and probably some free lunches, breakfasts, and dinners, and hotel rooms, if I might add. And after a trial that began in the middle of last month, well, we're done. It's finished. Yay! As a result of the guilty verdict on the money transmission charge, Storm now faces up to 5 years in prison. In the wake of the verdict being issued, the prosecution immediately made a motion to remand Storm into custody, claiming flight risk. The defense's Ms. Klein pushed back on the government's assertion, stating that Storm had little reason to flee the United States, especially considering that his home in Seattle, Washington, is tied up in a $2 million bail bond. His daughter, of which he has partial custody, is here. The girlfriend are based in the U.S., and his parents are green card holders. And that much of the crypto community that supported Storm is based in the U.S., and that they'll hopefully continue to support Storm as he appeals this verdict. The prosecution then claimed now that Storm has been convicted of a crime, he has yet more incentive to actually flee, but the judge was not convinced. No. She claimed that the stability of the verdict is still in play, likely referring to the notion that Storm will appeal the verdict, and he damn well better. But before adding that his incentives have shifted tremendously, subsequently denying the prosecution's motion to remand him. Shortly after the verdict was issued, U.S. Attorney for SDNY and former U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission Chair Jay Clayton issued a statement on the verdict. Quote, Roman Storm and Tornado Cash provided a service for North Korean hackers and other criminals to move and hide more than $1 billion of dirty money, said Jay Clayton. Quote, the speed, efficiency, and functionality of stablecoins and other digital assets offer great promise, but that promise cannot be an excuse for criminality. Criminals who use new technology to commit age-old crimes, including holding dirty money, undermine the public trust and unfairly cast a shadow on the many innovators who operate lawfully. Quote, this office and our partner agencies are committed to holding accountable those who exploit emerging technologies to commit crime. God, every time somebody says, like somebody like Jay Clayton says, your intent to commit crime, you know what I think about? I think about, like, what was his name? Rufus, the crime dog. He looked like a detective. He was dressed in a freaking trench coat. This shit was from the 80s, man. He was like, it was always talking about fighting crime. It was about neighborhood watch and fighting crime. And oh my God, it just makes me whatever. Clayton did not acknowledge the memo issued by U.S. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, excuse me, in which Blanche stated that the U.S. Department of Justice will stop participating in regulation by prosecution in the crypto space and that it will no longer target virtual currency mixing services for the acts of their end users. And he also did not mention that the vast majority of funds that moved through Tornado Cash users were not proven to have been obtained illicitly. Okay, so that's Frank Corva's take, but he's mainly focusing here on the flight risk and the fact that the judge has denied the prosecution to remand Roman Storm into custody after this verdict. The judge thinks that he's okay, he's probably not going to run, and he can basically be remanded to his home. He's not going to be able to go overseas, most likely. I mean, I don't think the judge actually said it, but I just know it's probably not going to happen. So how restricted are his movements going to be? Nobody really knows at this time. But he ain't going to prison. He's not going to go to county jail. He's not going to go to city jail. He's not going to go to a halfway house. I don't know if he's going to have like some kind of house arrest thing going on or not. But that's not the point, because there's one other thing that the judge said that is extremely telling. It's very important, and I'm going to let this gentleman from The Rage, which is Lola Leitz's outfit, explain it to you.
And ultimately, Judge Fila said, and she said some very interesting stuff. She said that, first of all, she did not remand him. He will be free until sentencing and during the entire appeals process. And she said specifically that the MCB charge that he was found guilty on was perhaps the one with the most route to an appeal, which was quite interesting to hear the judge herself say in open court. She said there were a lot of interesting, I think, questions or problems, something to that effect. And so there's two things there. Roman Storm will not be in jail waiting his sentencing. He'll presumably be home in Seattle. I don't know what travel restrictions he has. I'm almost certain he can't leave the United States, but I'm not sure about his ability to move around other than that. And the second note being, we have indications from the judge who heard the case that there are some interesting legal routes for challenging the one count on which he was convicted. And so, again, to emphasize, that MTB charge, maximum sentence is 5 years. He would probably get less than that, maybe. So there is, this was another reason why the defense argued and successfully argued that he was a low flight risk, because the MTB charge is fightable and the sentence is light, relatively.
And there it is. The judge herself is actually saying you've got a route to an appeal. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I've never argued in court. I've never argued in criminal court. It's just it's out of my wheelhouse. But it does, to me, seem extremely odd that the judge that heard the case is saying, in effect, two things here when it comes to the fact that she basically said, oh, this is totally appealable. One is that weighed in on her decision to not remand Roman Storm to custody because this is appealable. And the second thing is that she gave hints as to routes of how that appeal might take course. It's amazing that that judge did this. And honestly, very honestly here, guys, it makes me have a lot of hope that they are going to appeal. That's going to be immediate, right? I have high hopes that he's going to win the appeal and that all these charges are basically just going to go away and that Roman Storm will be a completely free man, and it will set a precedent that people that are developing these kinds of technologies will not be able to be held liable for the actions of others who use that technology. Let's look at it this way. Let's say time wasn't the linear thing that we have now, that everybody who has ever existed on this planet still actually is alive. Like we're all, like the timeline of humanity is compressed. Now, let's say that I go pick up a printed book of the Anarchist Cookbook and I read it. And I read about how to make a pipe bomb out of, I don't know, Play-Doh and gasoline and nails in a lead pipe with caps on the end. I don't know if Play-Doh's involved, but because I've never actually read the book. But it's a printed book. Well, who's responsible for the technology of printing? Gutenberg. So let's go get Gutenberg because, like I said, timeline of humanity is compressed and we all exist all at once. Let's go drag Gutenberg into a trial because I used the technology that enabled the print of the book to lay in my hands so that I could read how to make a pipe bomb, and then I deploy said pipe bomb and cause damage or loss of life. It's Gutenberg's fault. It's not my fault. I have no responsibility whatsoever for making the decision to assemble all these things. No. It was the instructions. So not only is Gutenberg responsible, but the authors of the Anarchist Cookbook is responsible. And if we can go find the guy that actually came up with the idea for the pipe bomb itself, the very first pipe bomb ever, we can go get that guy. We put his ass on trial. You see how fucking ridiculous this is? Everything becomes everybody else's fault. Nobody has to take any responsibility for their actions ever, because we can always find somebody else to blame. This has nothing to do with Roman Storm. It has nothing to do with Tornado Cash. It has everything to do with the fact that the prosecutors representing the United States government feel the fear of the United States government like a small child in a dark room scared of monsters under their bed, and understands that there are indeed real monsters under their bed that are coming to eat them. That's what's going on here. It has never been anything but about control. They don't give a shit about Tornado Cash. They don't care about Roman Storm. They just want to make an example of him so that everybody else just gets scared, remains terrified, and never, ever, ever tries to develop any technology. Because if you do, and somebody uses it that you don't know that they used it, you can be held liable. It's all bullshit, but not as much bullshit as this one. This one is freaking me out. Solomon Brothers say it has completed the process of notifying, quote, abandoned crypto wallets. Oliver Knight has this one for CoinDesk. And ladies and gentlemen, this one, half of me wants to just roll my eyes because I know in effect it has no effect. But the other part of me is just like, I cannot believe human beings like this actually roam the fucking planet. The revived Solomon Brothers announced on Thursday that it has completed the process of inserting op return notices to Bitcoin wallets assumed to have been abandoned. According to a press release shared with CoinDesk, the New York-based investment bank are sending the notices to prevent, quote, rogue states and criminal organizations with significant resources from potentially accessing these wallets in the future. It's laughable. The process itself has created a wealth of debate, with speculation suggesting that Solomon Brothers have ties to people like Craig Wright. Yeah, that it sounds like it. That's a Craig Wright playbook, man. Quote, they are using Bitcoin's own infrastructure as a bulletin board. David Carvalho, CEO of Neoris Protocol, told CoinDesk. It's very clever, and they're going big, targeting some infamous wallets like the OneFeeX address, which holds around 80,000 BTC. I'm pausing here to remind you the OneFeeX address is OneFeeX. That's why we call it OneFeeX. It's the first 5 digits of that wallet address. That's the wallet address that was made very, very famous in the Craig Wright trials versus, what was it? I can't remember. It was Hal Finney's brother. Anyway, whatever. It wasn't the Peter McCormick case. It was the case about the business, and they had a claim on the million Bitcoin in Satoshi's wallet. OneFeeX is one of those wallets. Continuing. According to the Solomon Brothers website, assets left untouched for 14 years may be considered legally abandoned under a doctrine of abandonment, thus leaving the front door open in terms of repossession. The method of gaining access to those wallets remains unclear. Carvalho told CoinDesk that the Bitcoin community isn't doing what needs to be done to prevent methods like quantum hacking. So this is just getting ridiculous almost immediately. Quote, the draft BIP proposals are entirely inadequate, and achieving consensus on a hard fork will take so long that it will be too late. Oh my God, we're all going to die. Is we going to die? Considering 6.51 million Bitcoin worth $700 billion is at stake, it's staggering how slow the Bitcoin community is moving, he added. The Solomon Brothers said that its client, who remains anonymous, plans to allocate a portion of the recovered Bitcoin to a fund intended for wallet owners who lost their keys, details of which will be released over the coming months. The notices sent to wallet holders gives a 90-day deadline within which they can, quote, claim ownership of the wallets by sending a transaction or filling out a form on the Solomon Brothers website. Jesus Christ. Woo! The press release notes that some owners responded to the notices by moving their digital assets to new wallets. Are you fucking kidding me? Okay, first of all, let's go back in time to 2008. Solomon Brothers is one of the brokerages that folded hardcore because they had exposure to all the real estate or mortgage-backed real estate crap that was going on back then. So they go away, right? But here they've been resurrected, like I said, probably by the Druidic Egyptians in the Great Giza Pyramid. I don't know. But they come back to life. And then they start talking about the OneFeeX wallet. And they're literally taking a page out of Craig Wright's playbook. Some kind of legal mumbo jumbo that it may apply insofar as there is a doctrine of abandonment. There is a 14-year structure behind that, at least in the United States. But it doesn't matter because it doesn't fucking apply. If you don't have the private keys to that wallet, you can send me op returns all day long and twice on Sunday. And I don't care. I'm not going to fill out a form on the Solomon Brothers website. I'm not going to send them a message or sign a transaction for them. I probably wouldn't even move my funds because they would just follow it to the next wallet and then make some kind of harebrained argument that just because it moved doesn't mean that it's transfer of ownership. It doesn't matter. I don't know what's up here, but everything about this, it stinks. But luckily, they have no power. They have no, they might even have legal recourse, but it's not going to matter. It's just not going to matter. Unless you have the private keys, you can't do dick. I'm sorry for you, but that's just the way it goes. But this should be an object lesson of the kind of people we share this planet with. In my opinion, they should all be chucked into the sun. I mean, I don't want to be harsh about it, but this is why humanity doesn't express itself to its fullest extent. This is why we don't build cathedrals anymore. This is why we don't have great works. This is why everybody is mired down in the bullshit of daily existence, literally just waiting to die. And I don't want to be so black-pilled about it, but and we don't have to be. We can make the choice to not think that way. That's up to us, right? But when I look out across my brothers and sisters, all I really see is people that, for the majority of them, hate their jobs, that they work until they pray for retirement while all the time they're working this shitty job so that they can quit working and do what? Again, wait, many of them wait for death. Now, I hope a lot of them actually have fun with their retirement, but we're not building what humans are able to build. We haven't done so in a very, very long time. And it's because of people like the people here that figure out a way to revive this zombie brokerage company that died in 2008. And its first move is absolute ridiculousness. It's just dumb. And that's why it's going to be great to sit down with the first ever raw milk chocolate and Oshi Hodl butter chocolate sourdough cookie ice cream. Probably the best dessert GreatGhee has ever had in his entire life. I've got not one, but two Circle P vendors up for you today. The first is GreatGhee, which is actually our technically our real vendor of the day. GreatGhee makes some great ghee. And GreatGhee now you can find at GreatGhee.com. That's GreatGhee.com. He no longer has a Shopstr. He's got a full-blown website, a landing page for his product, which is ghee. It is clarified butter. But he's got a really nice-looking website. So let me just kind of go through this for you. He has 3 different products here. He's got a 16-ounce jar of 100% grass-fed, pasture-raised ghee. He also has 16-ounce and 32-ounce jars of pasture-raised, but not 100% grass-fed ghee. Now, what is ghee? And this I'm reading directly from his website. So I want to do this because this is informative, and people with informative websites generally win. Ghee, or clarified butter, is made by simmering butter to remove water, milk solids, and other impurities, leaving behind a golden, lactose-free oil with a nutty flavor and high smoke point. Unlike regular butter, ghee is shelf-stable and versatile for cooking, baking, or even skincare. Hey, have you ever used 100% tallow? Yeah, well, you can use butter too. It's still animal fat from a beef cow, right? So, from a milk cow, but cows are cows. When he says smoke point, he has a graph here, and it talks about different kinds of oils and oils that you cook with. So he's got this chart up here that's got the smoke points and some other information about ghee, butter, coconut oil, beef tallow, lard, avocado oil, and extra virgin olive oil. Smoke point refers to the temperature at which an oil can go before it starts to burn and actually emit smoke, which is generally speaking an oxidative process, and you do not want oxidation in your oil. So extra virgin olive oil starts to smoke at 375 to 410 degrees Fahrenheit. You do not deep fry shit in olive oil. You deep fry shit in something like beef tallow or lard. Lard has a smoke point of 370 to 400. Beef tallow, it goes from 400 to 420 before it starts to smoke. Coconut oil goes to 350 to 400. Butter has one of the lowest smoke points. It starts to smoke between 300 and 350 degrees. But when you take it through the ghee making process, your smoke point goes to 450 to 485 degrees Fahrenheit before it even starts to smoke. So this means that it has a very low oxidation potential. And that is one of the reasons why it makes it shelf stable. You can keep it on your shelf at room temperature for it. I've kept ghee on my room temperature with the jar closed for like 6 months. No freaking problem. Your mileage may vary, but the health benefits from ghee, it's rich in vitamins. It helps digestive support. It's heart healthy fat, guys. It's lactose free and allergen friendly. It has an antioxidant boost, and it's a weight management aid. Yes, you can lose a little bit of weight with ghee. Well, at least according to GreatGhee, who makes GreatGhee. And you can get GreatGhee at GreatGhee.com. That's GreatGhee.com. And by the way, just use BitcoinAnd in the comments section of the order form. And that lets GreatGhee know that I made the sale for him, because this is the Circle P where I bring plebs with goods and services for sale to plebs just like you that want to buy said goods and services. And you can do it at GreatGhee.com. That's GreatGhee.com. And by the way, that ice cream thing that I was telling you about, that's not actually for sale. That's just GreatGhee, who apparently used some of his product mixed with some of Oshi, the guy that makes HODL butter, and made ice cream out of it. He's got a picture of it here. Freaking looks delicious. I mean, honestly, HODL butter, chocolate, sourdough cookie ice cream. Let me read it to you again. Raw milk, chocolate, Oshi butter, chocolate, sourdough cookie ice cream. I wish there was a way that he could package that and ship it, because I would try to sell it. Now, on to something and someone else who's trying to sell something completely different. Trump is going to allow crypto in 401k plans for United States workers. This is out of the White House press office. Ezra Reguera reporting for Cointelegraph. Trump, the orange man, will sign an executive order opening the door for cryptocurrencies to be included in 401k retirement plans, reshaping Americans investing their savings. The White House press office confirmed to Cointelegraph on Thursday that the order directs the U.S. Labor Department to reevaluate restrictions around alternative assets in defined contribution plans, including digital assets, private equity, and, of course, real estate, because Orange Man is a real estate developer. The senior White House official said that the order instructs the Labor Secretary to clarify the department's stance on alternative assets and provide guidance on fiduciary processes for offering these types of investments in retirement portfolios. Once implemented, the order will grant Americans access to digital assets through their 401k plans, part of a $12.5 trillion with a T dollar retirement market, and a sought-after opportunity for crypto firms aiming to reach more retail. That's right, we want more retail. The move would be a significant step forward for the crypto industry, which has long sought broader retail exposure and financial system legitimacy. Despite institutional investors' increasing crypto allocations, everyday savers have been restricted due to fiduciary risk, regulatory uncertainty, and volatile concerns. Excuse me. The White House official said that Trump's directive would call for interagency coordination with the Treasury and the Securities and Exchange Commission to export rule changes that may support the adoption of alternative investments like crypto and retirement products. On July the 18th, the Financial Times cited anonymous sources saying the president was eyeing alternative investments like crypto assets for 401ks. In a previous statement to Cointelegraph, White House spokesman Kush Desai said that nothing should be deemed official unless it comes from Trump. Desai said Trump is committed to restoring prosperity to everyday Americans and safeguarding their economic future. No decision should be deemed official, however, unless it comes from President Trump himself, blah, 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 blah. So they go into a cover your ass statement here at the end of Cointelegraph, or at least rather the White House secretary or press secretary or whatever spokesperson is giving a cover your ass thing. It doesn't matter. If Trump does this, everything explodes. And yes, you'll have to actually live through yet one more alt season, because the retirement plans still don't know enough about Bitcoin to figure out that they're getting scammed by everything that's not Bitcoin. That's too bad. We don't have time. We've got numbers to run. Futures and commodities, oil going south like a duck in winter, a third of a point to the downside. West Texas Intermediate clocking in at $64.15 per barrel. Brent North Sea down over a quarter of a point to 66.71. Natural gas down 1.25 to just over $3 a thousand cubic feet. And gasoline is down a quarter to $2.08. 8 United States pennies, ladies and gentlemen. Metals. Most of them are doing well today. Gold is up 2/3 of a point to 34.55. Silver is up 1.3. Platinum is up just over a point, but copper is crawling sideways in the red. Palladium is up 2.5, so it's the big winner for the day. Ag is mostly in the green, and the biggest winner here is chocolate, 2.7% to the upside. Biggest loser is lumber, 1.7 to the downside. Live cattle is up 0.4, but lean hogs are down a row of sticks, 1.11%. Feeder cattle are up 2/3 of a point. Meanwhile, the Dow sucking swamp water, 0.7 to the downside. S&P is down 0.15%, but the NASDAQ is up a quarter, balanced by the S&P Mini, which is down exactly a quarter. Bitcoin at $116,640 gives us a $2.32 trillion market cap. You can get 34.3 ounces of shiny metal rocks with your one Bitcoin, of which there are 19,903,903,038.32 of, and average fees per block are slightly elevated at 0.04 BTC in fees on a per block basis, of which there are 21 blocks carrying 92,000 unconfirmed transactions, clearing at high priority rates at 2 Satoshis per VByte. Low priority is going to get you in at 1. Hash rate remains right around where it was yesterday, and 962 exahashes per second, so you can do with that what you will. I, however, will be like water, which was the title of yesterday's episode of Bitcoin, and I got Justin, who's coming in strong with 5,000 Satoshis. My brother. Thank you. I appreciate that. He says, enjoyed the show. Justin, I enjoy making the show. That's why donations are very, very important, because I can't continue making the show unless people say, I want the show. Here's money so that you can, put food into your mouth. Progressively Worse comes in with 2,000, says, here are some digital shekels to fatten thy purse. For the 7 cures for a lean purse will surely help one become the richest man in Babylon. That's a great book. If you have not read that book, dude, go search it on YouTube. You'll get the audio version. It's free. It takes about 3.5 hours to 4 hours to get through. It's a great book. It really is. It's a great book. Awesome book recommendation. Yes, it is. I'm on my second playthrough and see more or many more in the future. Thank you for your content, Mr. BD. I appreciate that, man. User 42752445 with 511 sat says nothing. Psyduck with 741 says, Psyduck. Turkey with 500 says nothing. God's Death with 237 says, thank you, sir. No, thank you. And that's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. The government is not your friend. Shinobi, I love you, dude, but honestly, no kidding. Duh. However, Shinobi always makes some really good points. Let's see what he's got to say from Bitcoin Magazine. Yesterday's guilty verdict for Roman Storm on the count of conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money service business is absolutely insane. FinCEN, the regulator responsible for licensing, monitoring, and enforcement actions concerning criminal activity and money transmission, has itself explicitly stated that self-custodial tooling that facilitates the transmission of value using cryptocurrencies are not money transmitters and are not subject to the relevant regulations. So, how did we get here? 8 months after the election of a president who describes himself as a Bitcoin and cryptocurrency advocate, after the Department of Justice themselves have explicitly stated that they are not going to engage in regulation by prosecution or prosecute mixing services, how was Roman Storm found guilty? There is nothing to describe this situation except pure, unbridled insanity, incoherence, hypocrisy, and contradiction. There's a lesson here, though, one that I think it's time more people in this space learns. The government's word is worthless. It means nothing. They will continue cracking down on privacy. They will continue pushing KYC surveillance through things like the Genius Act and through the back door, applying them to just stable coins for now. They will continue treating the desire for privacy as evidence of criminal intent. They will do all these things while talking out of the other side of their mouth about supporting Bitcoiners and the importance of self-custody. This is what the government does. This is what politicians do. It is inherent in their very nature. We need to stop treating these people as our friends. We need to stop pretending and lying to ourselves that they can be won over and become powerful allies to push the values and tools that we wish to see in the world. They are not our friends. They will not become allies. They will not be sharing a common cause with us. They are, in fact, our enemies. It's time to stop pretending these people must be treated as hostile and dealt with as such. We need to stop begging them for clauses and riders and bills. We need to take them to court. Okay, I gotta pause, Shinobi. The court system is part of the federal government. What on earth makes you think that's going to change anything? It's part of the very thing you're talking about. It's time to stop pretending. These people must be treated as hostile and dealt with as such, and that includes, my friend, the courts. Sorry. We need to stop kissing their ass and pandering to their egos and notion of public persona. We need to call them out as the two-faced, spineless people they are. If there is any legitimacy whatsoever to the legal foundations of the United States government, we do not need new laws. We do not need these people's permission. We have the Constitution. Remind them of that in court. If at the end of that, this system is so corrupt and hypocritical that it functionally ignores the constitutional rights of Americans and non-Americans, then we need to ignore them. Civil disobedience is the last mechanism we have to hold the government accountable to the foundational constraints they are built upon, short of violence, and it's time to use it. Free human beings do not ask for their freedom, they take it. In a digital age creeping ever closer to Orwellian totalitarianism, that is the only way we will ever attain it. Now that shit, Shinobi, I agree with. And I will reiterate what I've said a couple of times on this podcast. It is time for us to basically beg off the next 10 years as far as development of digital tools, money, all that is concerned. Nostr, Bitcoin. Next up is ISPs. How the hell do we get onto the internet without an ISP? Guys, that is a huge bottleneck. A license to be able to access the ISP system is on the horizon. It's a boat. I can see the mast out on the fucking horizon. It's coming to the new world. And it's going to bring with it the acolytes and the priests and the bishops and the archbishops and the fucking pope of bullshit. And it's going to land on the shores and it's going to spread its fucking disease just like Columbus accidentally. They had no idea they were going to do that. But still, the effect was the same. It completely decimated. It didn't decimate. That's when you kill 1 out of every 10 people. No. What it did to the New World was what it nonated them. It killed 90% of all the indigenous peoples in the New World when they landed. They brought their disease with them. Of course, they themselves were pretty much unaffected by the disease because they had lived with this shit. But the new people, the new guys, the guys over there in what became Central America and Mexico and South America, they had no defenses whatsoever against this bullshit. And when they paraded themselves onto the shore, carrying the, quote, word of God, they ended up destroying everything they saw. It was like a Marine Corps battle unit on the battlefield. If you ever saw Full Metal Jacket, you know why God loves the Marine Corps? Because we kill everything we see. I mean, it's an amazing movie. If you have not seen Full Metal Jacket, dude, that movie is badass. But let's get back to this shit. The government is not your friend. And you know how they keep us in check? They continuously tell us how we're poor and that everybody else's life is great. You need to be a doctor. You need to be a lawyer. You need to be some kind of licensed by the state individual to make the kind of money that you see on Robin Leach's Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, which basically told everybody in the 80s how much they sucked and showed it to them on the television set every freaking Thursday night. It may have been Sunday. I'm not sure. I don't care. But basically, Robin Leach was basically rubbing your nose in the fact that you didn't have what these people have. Right? They got all these people. They're just going to always do what the government tells them to do. They don't want to lose that wealth. What happens? What happens if a whole bunch of people says, fine, fuck it, I'll be a hermit. And I want to build tools that are absolutely unassailable by any government, much less the United States government, so that I can transact my ideas, my version of a value of wealth with anybody, anywhere, at any time. I'm just not going to be able to get rich from it because I won't be able to have a corporation because that corporation will have a license and that license will tell them where I'm at. I'll have a phone number. I'll have an email. I'll have a P.O. box. I'll have a secretary that can answer the phone that says, yes, Mr. Federal Prosecutor, I think he's in his office. So let me ring him for you. It doesn't work anymore. You want freedom. If we want freedom, we're going to have to figure something out. And it may absolutely have to begin with the fact that we may have to learn how to have fun staying poor. I don't know how else to say it, but I feel that it's an important shift in the mental capacity of humanity to say, I could probably do this for 10 years, just enough to get enough technology pushed through that none of these people will ever be able to find any of the developers that do anything because we don't use our names. There's no linkages to us. And the main linkage that they always have to us is if we go for profit. And if you want to make sure that you don't get a profit, be a podcaster like myself and my good friend Daniel Prince from the Once Bitten podcast. I love Once Bitten. It's a great podcast. he does interviews. He doesn't do news like I do. Okay. We have a completely different ways of doing things, but we are both Bitcoin centric. And what I love about Daniel is he homeschools his kids and he gives practical advice about that and a whole bunch of other things. But the most practicality I've ever seen out of most podcasters is the fact that Daniel is literally training his daughter how to interact with other people by getting her to ask the first few questions of any interview that he does. She's smart as a whip, and she asks some of the best questions that I've ever heard, and she writes them herself. Knowing Daniel, he does not write those questions for her. He does not. These are her questions. And she's young. She's like, I don't know, I'm going to say 14. I don't know, but she's not like 20. Okay. When I mean young, she's not 20. She's way younger than that. She's like a kid, an adolescent, right? Ask good questions. She gets good answers. This is a girl that was asking Michael Saylor questions. So go to the Once Bitten, a Bitcoin podcast. Talk to my friend Daniel and tell Daniel that you heard about his podcast here on the BitcoinAnd podcast, because Daniel's my friend. I've been on the show a couple of times and I just love promoting plebs because this is how we win with lightning payments and VPN. Okay, well, it's not how we win, but it's definitely in the toolbox there. Yeah, Mullvad.net. It's a VPN company. If you want to kind of mask where your IP address and kind of spoof the system a little bit, you're going to want to use VPN. But Mullvad is a really good VPN, and for as long as I've known them, they've always taken Bitcoin payments. Now they're doing something else. They've installed lightning payments. And here's from their blog, mullvad.net/en/blog. At long last, we are accepting payments through the Bitcoin Lightning Network. This means instant transactions, lower fees, and enhanced privacy compared to on-chain Bitcoin payments. Bitcoin Lightning is a protocol that allows paying with regular Bitcoin in a cheaper and faster way. Transaction costs are on the order of pennies, and speeds are on the order of seconds, not minutes. Lightning also offers a significantly different privacy model than regular on-chain Bitcoin payments, since Lightning payments are not stored on the blockchain. Instead, Lightning payments are routed through a network called the Lightning Network, which allows payments to be anonymized through onion routing, similar to how Tor works. In order to make Bitcoin Lightning payments, you need to use a Lightning-compatible Bitcoin wallet. Then, you can generate a Lightning invoice on our website and put that into your wallet. The payment should not take longer than a couple of seconds. We do not provide refunds for Lightning, but we do offer a 10% discount for any Lightning purchase. In case you want to open a channel to us, we have a Lightning node. Just like with all our other cryptocurrency payments, we run our own Lightning node using the LND implementation. So, if you want, you can open your own channel to it in order to either pay for VPN time directly or route through it and reach the larger Lightning network. Our Lightning node's address is, and they give the Lightning node address. Note that you do not need to open a channel directly to us in order to pay. Routing through the network works just fine. I will have their Lightning address in the show notes so that if you have a Lightning node of your own, you can open one directly to Mullvad. And I kind of recommend I'm going to try to do that later today, because Mullvad is going to be one of those points on the Lightning Network that gains a lot of attention. And I would like to be attached to it, not to get attention, but to have other routes into the Lightning Network more than I already have. Yeah, I know somebody's out there going, yeah, Roger Ver said it right, man. It's spoke and wheel. No, it's many spokes and wheels, and they're all interconnected. And they're so interconnected to the point that I kind of can't see the spoke and wheel anymore. All I see is a very, very large network that is so ridiculously interconnected that it kind of looks like mushroom mycelium. But that's another blog post or possibly an episode here on the BitcoinAnd podcast. Still, though, Mullvad now taking lightning payments for their goods and services. It's good news, everybody. On to the UK, or the United Knuckleheads. A UK listed oil and gas firm eyes Bitcoin mining at hydrocarbon site, considers BTC treasury strategy. James Hunt for The Block says Union Jack Oil, a US and UK focused onshore hydrocarbon production, development, exploration, and investment company, plans to monetize gas production at a joint venture discovery site in East Yorkshire. Is that where pudding came from? Through a new Bitcoin mining operation. And the UK listed firm said on Thursday that the joint venture, operated by Rathlin Energy, has entered into a non-binding agreement with Texas-based natural gas offtake and monetization provider 360 Energy to deploy the Bitcoin mining infrastructure as regulatory delays continue to hamper traditional development pathways. A binding definitive agreement is expected to follow under the same terms. Following a feasibility study, the proposed initiative would convert natural gas from existing wells into electricity on site, powering modular data centers that mine Bitcoin, subject to regulatory and third-party approvals, according to the statement. The companies plan to roll out the initiative in phases. Union Jack said the joint venture partners view Bitcoin mining as an innovative way to generate near-term value, offering early production and cash flow ahead of any full gas field development. The company added that the initial economic estimates suggest the approach could yield, quote, very attractive returns from stranded and uneconomic natural gas wells that might otherwise remain unused. The site has been independently assessed to contain nearly 200 billion, that's billion with a B, 200 billion cubic feet of recoverable gas. Guys, that is a lot of natural gas. Union Jack stock is currently up 1.5 on Thursday following the news, but remains 44.8% down, year to date, according to TradingView. Alongside our joint venture partners, we are delighted to offer a positive update on the possible development of a gas monetization and Bitcoin mining concept at West Newton. We continue to believe that this asset holds material value, which could eventually deliver significant volumes of onshore, low-carbon sales gas into the UK's important domestic natural gas market. Bramhill explained, by the way, that was Union Jack Executive Chairman David Bramhill, and he continued to explain that onshore energy developers have had to adopt unconventional strategies to overcome challenges and drive growth, adding that Union Jack's board sees the proposed Bitcoin mining concept as a creative approach with strong potential for sustainable returns, which could ultimately support the introduction of a Bitcoin treasury strategy if successful. All right, so that's the end of the article, and there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts here, but it seems that they're actually trying to go for it. Now, I want to get back to this statement. The company added that initial economic estimates suggest the approach could yield very attractive returns from stranded or uneconomic natural gas wells that might otherwise remain unused, and that Bitcoin mining is an innovative way to generate near-term value by offering, and here it is, early production and cash flow ahead of any full gas field development. Do you know what that sounds like? That almost is the exact mirror image of the statement that we make when we talk about electrical grid infrastructure build out. What do I mean by that? Let's say you got a hydroelectric dam that they've built in the back hills of, I don't know, let's say Arkansas or something like that. Maybe not Arkansas, something more hilly. Yeah. But nobody lives back there. Right now, we've seen this in other countries. El Salvador's got one of these things. They've got like a geothermal thing going on in a couple places, and hydroelectricity going on in a couple of places. But there's no real connection to the grid. There's no real way to get the electrical generation actually transported to where it needs to be. So enter Bitcoin, where you've got a buyer of first resort. You set up mining, you build out the mining infrastructure right there on site, you suck off all the electrons, you burn them into Bitcoin, and boom, you've got Bitcoin that you can use to invest in the build out of connections from the energy generation thing, which in this case would be like a dam out in the middle of nowhere, out to, I don't know, San Salvador. And then you pull up the Bitcoin mining facility and you move it somewhere else because the Bitcoin mining facility paid for the build out of the transport. Now let's go over to natural gas. In general, in comparison to oil, natural gas does not hold a candle to the electrical or the energy density that oil does. However, it is highly useful, but not useful enough to build the pipeline infrastructure that you need to transport all of the stranded natural gas around the world to some place that can compress it and utilize it. Turn it into an actual energy stream. Nobody's going to build I don't know, let's say that there's a West Texas well out there that's out in the middle of nowhere and it's all by itself. And the nearest place that you could attach its natural gas output would be 15 miles away. That is a lot of money to spend on building a pipeline for this one well. But if you were to burn the natural gas, convert it into electrons and burn those electrons into Bitcoin and use that Bitcoin to build out that pipeline, well, now you got something. That's how I read this statement. And honestly, we need to stop losing our natural gas. We need to build these pipelines to where we can capture it and save it. This is very useful stuff. Sure, it doesn't have the energy density of oil, and oil doesn't have the energy density of nuclear energy, but that doesn't mean that it's useless. I love natural gas. The one thing that I miss about my house in Lubbock the most, aside from my massive 75-year-old pecan tree, was my gas stove and my gas water heater and my gas, heater for the whole house. It all ran on natural gas. It's cheap as shit. And it had enough energy density to do everything I needed it to do around the house. Hell, I even plumbed in directly to the natural gas line, illegally, I might add. But I figured out how to break down the meter out in the alley. I hooked up a second line to it. I ran a line to my garage, and I had all of the jets in my I was using propane burners to brew beer with. I took out the little plug and I took him over to a guy that was a welder and a machine shopist. And I said, would you do me a favor and re-drill these to where I can accept natural gas instead of propane? They have to be a little bit bigger. So he drilled them out. I put them back into my burners, and never had to fill up another propane tank. Of course, I'm not a plumber. I'm not a licensed plumber, but I did it anyway. And they didn't catch me for 3 years. In fact, they didn't catch me until I had moved out of that house for a year to move to Austin. And I let my in-laws stay there rent free so they could take care of the house and get something out of the deal. And all of a sudden, I don't know, they called somebody. It had something to do with the gas line. Maybe they smelled gas one day and the whole thing got torn out. I busted my ass trenching that trench, and I did it to code. That natural gas is useful, and we really need to stop wasting this shit. Anyway, let's get on to the last story of the day, and that is that the United States is exploring Bitcoin reserve through gold revaluation. Oh shit, Atlas21.com. A recent report by the Federal Reserve has sparked debate over whether the United States government could fund Bitcoin acquisitions using gains. I can't stand these gains, bro. From the revaluation of its official gold holdings. The study, titled Official Reserve Revaluations, the International Experience, outlines how 5 countries have used profits from their official gold reserves to raise liquidity. While it does not explicitly propose that the U.S. follow suit, the document explains the steps involved and what to expect if a similar path were pursued. The report reviews the cases of Germany, Italy, Lebanon, Curacao, and St. Martin, and South Africa. Some of these countries used revaluation proceeds to reduce public debt, while others applied them to cover central bank losses. Get rid of your you lose the central bank, and you won't have that problem. Currently, the U.S. Treasury values its gold reserves at $42.22 per ounce. That price was set in 1973. The Treasury holds 261.5 million ounces, most of it stored at Fort Knox, Kentucky. At the official price, the gold is worth about $11 billion. But at today's market price, it would be worth $750 billion, which honestly is still a drop in the bucket compared to outstanding debt for the United States, but I digress. The Trump administration has already taken initial steps towards creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve. On March the 6th, the U.S. president signed an executive order establishing the reserve using only the digital assets previously seized by the Treasury. Is there anything else? No. See, I hate these things because we're making conjecture that they might, and they didn't say anything, but that they might buy Bitcoin if they revalue the gold. Honey, if they revalue that gold, all hell's going to break loose across sectors that you never even dreamed of. All of a sudden, electronics prices are going to be affected. All of a sudden, durable goods are going to be affected. All of a sudden, everything is going to be affected. This is probably why they haven't done it yet. In either event, I would take this one with a grain of salt. It is the last story of the day, but I want to reiterate that even though Roman Storm got hosed, and he did get hosed on that count, if I can't imagine Roman Storm not appealing, and I have the highest of hopes that Roman Storm will win on appeal, which is completely tempered by the moronacy behind the revival of the Solomon Brothers brokerage firm and their idiotic move to try to claim abandoned wallets by sending a message in an op return to that wallet. That is not a legal means to file a subpoena or to serve somebody notice. There's no recognition in United States code that is a viable way to serve somebody information that of a legal nature or put them on quote unquote notice of a legal nature. It's bullshit. Do not worry about it, except understand this. It would not surprise me in the least that two things are occurring here. One, that Craig Wright and his crew are directly or adjacent to this somehow. Two, and if I can remember what the hell two was, I would actually tell it to you. It's going to be used as FUD. That's what I was getting at. It's going to be used as FUD. Even if the Craig Wright part is left out of the FUD by itself, I could see U.S. News and World Report, The Economist, Financial Times, all the rest of the baggage that we're dragging behind us from the legacy world that is burning down, thankfully. I could see them using writing headlines such as Solomon Brothers claims half of all Bitcoin. Everybody's going to die, with a picture of Jar Jar Binks on the cover. Or something like Solomon Brothers legal claim to billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. It would not surprise me in the least. And you know what I'm going to do about it? Nothing. You know how I feel about it? Nothing. You know why? Not my first rodeo. Been in this shit since 2015. I've seen every fucking dirty trick ever used. And at this point, it's nothing but recycling. This one, however, is slightly different. So I will give them points and kudos for at least being creative. I'll give them that. But hopefully I won't see them on the other side. This has been BitcoinAnd, and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.